Grab your coffee or pull up a chair. I always got opinions and a whole lot of air. Caucuses, cornfields, common sense. Well, 2 out of 3, cause the last one's on defense. Pour something stronger, the news is a mess. Let's talk Iowa and hope for the best.
Hey everyone, greetings from the oven that is Iowa in summer. Before we get to the pure chaos of today's episode, I just want to say a massive thank you. Um, Fighting with the state budget bureaucrats day in and day out is completely exhausting. But knowing that you all have our backs and have my back makes it a hell of a lot easier to stay stubborn and on mission. I want to give you a pretty big update on our fight for my son. After weeks of pure gridlock, we finally received word that his out of state funding has been approved by the Iowa Department of Education. On paper, this is a massive win, right? It's a big victory, but we need to be honest about the reality of how we got here. This relief was preceded by a completely toxic and unnecessary amount of trauma, stress, and anxiety that was forced onto my family. We spent weeks, really months, in a state of absolute panic, drowning in this manufactured crisis that these agencies just create because the agencies we're supposed to rely on didn't bother to open their own rule books. Now, my wife will tell you that I also rarely open the instructions or the rule books when assembling, furniture, or anything that you buy at like IKEA. This usually leaves us with maybe a structurally unsound patio set. But I'm an elementary school teacher with a $0 podcast budget. I'm allowed to be a little clunky. They run a multi-billion-dollar state apparatus, and they don't have that same excuse. If Iowa HHS, the managed care organizations, the MCOs, and the Department of Education were actually familiar with the very Iowa code they are paid to administer, they would have seen the administrative track that's available on day one. So while the funding is approved, we are now waiting for the final paperwork. When this hits my desk, we're going to see if they've changed. Right? I'm on high alert to see if they are going to try to play the exact same song and dance around financial liability on the intake forms. Now, we've won this battle for the school desk, but the defensive line is still up. My son and many like him in the state have fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. FASD, it's a permanent physical brain injury. And this injury completely messes with how he processes the world, how he handles stress, and how he controls his impulses. He has been at the State Mental Health Institute, MHI, for the last 6 to 7 months. And because those walls, those expectations don't move, right? Their boundaries are completely unyielding, which has helped his brain finally settle down. The aggression stopped or minimized. He's stable. And because he's been stable for a certain amount of time, and a very arbitrary amount of time, the discharge team started saying, hey, he's not hitting anyone currently, so he must be ready to step down to a lower level of care. Okay, that's a philosophy I personally don't agree with. I feel like he's successful because of that level of care, but they spent weeks looking for a high structure step down anywhere in the state of Iowa, and he was denied by every single provider. There's literally nothing in the entire state, so they expanded it nationwide, and a specialized facility that's high security finally accepted him. in Florida. But instead of letting us celebrate, local state agents threw up an illegal financial paywall. The local school district worked to be accommodating with us, but Iowa Total Care said, hey, special ed funding won't follow him. It's going to be a concern unless you get a juvenile court order. And they said, if you place him in Florida without a child in need of assistance case, a China case, you could personally be liable for out of state school tuition. Now, personally liable for out of state private tuition. Do they know what my salary is? My credit score just looking at my monthly streaming subscriptions is crying. If they think they can squeeze a Florida facility invoice out of a public school teacher's bank account, they're going to end up repossessing my collection of worn out dry erase markers or maybe my 30-year-old rusty truck that's outside. Yeah, good luck liquidating that asset. They were running a high stakes financial bluff in order to coerce us into surrendering custody. So let's do a point by point comparison of what state workers practice in the dark versus what Iowa law explicitly commands on paper. Point one, the myth of the mandatory court order. So, in practice, caseworkers will tell families that out of state public funding is impossible without a juvenile court China order. But the actual code, if we look at federal ICPC regulation number 4, section 2A, it explicitly states that a public subdivision like a local school district or an area education agency, an AEA, or a parent is fully authorized to act as the legal sending agency out of state. A juvenile court order is not an all encompassing mandatory prerequisite. Point two, the budgetary coercion trap. Now, in practice, um, offices will explicitly force families into the juvenile court system. HHS is famous for this. And they want this because they want to get a judge to cover expenses so they can draw money from the federal government down. And they pressure parents to surrender custody of their child just to get a secure therapeutic bed. The actual code, if you look at Iowa Code section 282.35, subsection 1A, 3, the law states this administrative track is triggered when the HHS director certifies it is necessary to prevent the filing of a China petition, bypassing the court. So, bypassing the court is the legislative intent, right? Forcing parents into a courtroom to secure funding is a total subversion of the statute's protective design. Point three, passing the financial hot potato. Now, in practice, school districts, private MCOs, every entity will just claim they don't have an available administrative mechanism or single case contract pipeline to fund specialized tuition directly with out of state facilities. The actual code, if you look at Iowa Code section 282.35, subsection 2, this section explicitly grants your local resident school district direct, standalone contracting power. They can sign a single case agreement with an approved out of state facility. They have the pen, they just oftentimes choose not to sign. Point four, pinning the invoice to the resident district. Now, the practice is like school districts will claim that paying out of state educational costs will drain their local resources. No one wants this. And it will bankrupt special education budgets meant for students here at the home district. But the actual code, if you look at Iowa Code Rule 281-41.116, Subrule 8, legal jargon, it establishes that the school district is legally responsible for the classroom instructional costs under House File 787. But under Iowa Code Section 282.35, subsection 3D, those out of state tuition costs are pooled at the state level and they're reimbursed back to the resident district. Um, so out of state foundation aid funds pro rata across all Iowa districts. So what they're saying is they collect all this money and they'll give it back to you. You're not holding the bill alone. It's all the state is. So they're not holding the long term bill, but they hold it as a threat and a shield to prevent that funding. I mean, to wrap this up, our 2014 adoption decree is a legally binding court order. It's signed by the state of Iowa by a judge, and it explicitly mandates that the state holds complete responsibility. Everything. There's no middle ground. It explicitly says it on two different parts that they are explicitly responsible for specialized needs with zero, absolute zero parental liability. Now, the tools to seamlessly fund this care administratively have been on the books for years. The system simply chooses to hide the playbook from parents. All right. Time for a new segment. I think you'll like this one. Let's go ahead and get to it.
I saw this online and I gasped out aloud. This clip deserves to be shown to a crowd. Grab some popcorn and brace for the ride. Hit the button and roll the tape.
All right. Now, before I actually roll the tape and you get to watch this video, and before I dive even further and connect this past experience, what's happening to the broader financial rot in our state, I want to take a quick timeout. I need to share this video with you. Um, it perfectly illustrates and shows the flavor of bureaucracy that I deal with and families like mine deal with. It's it's bureaucratic theater at its best, and it's everywhere. So this is an Australian series called Utopia. It's brilliant satirical comedy, and it focuses on this ridiculous inner workings of a government department. And you can watch it on YouTube. And I was kind of stumbling through YouTube, like sometimes I do, get lost in the rabbit holes there, and I found it, and I thought, man, this really connects with me, and I think it'll connect with you. Let's go ahead and we're gonna watch this, and I just want to see if your thoughts match mine. All right, here we go.
So let's go through the updated system. Someone's injured, what do you do?
Call an ambulance?
Nope.
Check if they're breathing?
First things first. You create and file an incident report.
Okay.
So just log on to the page here. You've got date of incident, location of incident, type of incident. There's a drop-down menu for that.
Death, serious injury, disease.
What's contagion?
Just pick one.
Serious injury.
Perfect. Now, hit submit. Job done.
And what about the injured person?
What about them?
Like if they needed medical assistance?
Oh, I see what you're saying. OK. Create a new file. Agency initially contacted.
Paramedics?
Via...
000?
Can I check if they're breathing?
Not yet, darling.
I mean, look at this. It's so funny. They are reviewing a software program designed to log a physical injury, and the entire focus shifts to whether the injury data fits this pre-programmed fields of the computer software, right? This interface. The the administrative apparatus is completely obsessed with data syntax, right? Um, I don't know. It entirely removes the human element from the equation. It, we laugh at this. because it's a brilliant parody of a system built to process data instead of people. But this clip is it's the exact word for word blueprint for how Iowa HHS, the Department of Education, and in these private insurance companies, the MCOs, behave when a child lands on their desks. Honestly, my own personal baseline of optimization data matrix has been completely corrupted for years, mostly driven by bad posture and a severe caffeine dependency. But you don't see me launching a multi-agency software review committee to investigate. It's wow. Why can't I find my car keys in the morning? Well, I don't know. Maybe I should launch a multi-agency software review to investigate. We might be able to find the answer. Now, you know what? I'll just deal with reality. Um, when a kid's in crisis, the state refuses to look at the physical reality. My son literally fractured his hand punching a reinforced plexiglass window because his permanent brain injury requires rigid boundaries. But just like the software reviewers in that video, they aren't looking at a human with a broken hand. They are looking at their internal software and they're going, hey, look at this digital chart showing his behavior ticks. They've leveled out inside a secure ward. And because his data fits, just so neatly into our readiness drop-down menu, we're going to declare that he is optimized for a less restrictive step down. They use sterile software workflows and rigid checklists as a shield so they don't have to look at the physical human trauma right in front of them. They don't have to think about the failure they're setting him up for. Anyway, time for another new segment. I am calling the Gaslight Chronicles. Here we go.
The system is perfect, the access is great. That's the corporate lie being fed by the state. Open your eyes to the fiction they model. It's time for the Gaslight Chronicles.
In the Gaslight Chronicles, we're gonna pull back the curtain on the grandest corporate illusion in the state of Iowa. When you ask local school districts or HHS, MCOs, why they can't fund complex care, they cry poverty. They look you in the eye and claim, hey, the budget is bone dry. They treat their budget spreadsheets like my wife treats my bank account passwords. Tightly guarded, completely hidden from me, and if I ask too many questions, I get locked out for safety reasons. But let's look at the spreadsheets. Iowa's Medicaid machine is a massive 7 billion, not million, billion-dollar operation. It's the single largest line item in the entire state of Iowa's budget. Yet, under the current privatized managed care organization model, the MCO model, we are witnessing a catastrophic crisis of administrative leakage. Over 1 billion, not million, $1 billion annually, every year, is funneled completely out of Iowa and straight into the out-of-state corporate boardrooms and wealthy insurance shareholders, while private for-profit insurance companies like Iowa Total Care protect their cash reserves by delaying and denying authorizations for critical care. Our local Iowa therapists, community services, and specialized mental health providers are being forced to shutter their doors due to unlivable reimbursement rates and endless paperwork mazes. The state gaslights you into believing there isn't enough money to protect high acuity children, while actively permitting over $1 billion of Iowa taxpayer money to just leave the state as corporate profit. Similar to most of the tax breaks that Republicans have passed in the last few years, these were supposed to trickle back down into our local economy. They instead trickle into foreign investments, the stock market, and very little actually remains local. Right? People aren't taking those savings and going to their local implement dealer and buying something. They're not going to small mom and pop shops and supporting small business. We're a more worldwide economy now, and that's just it's not working. Hence, we are digging heavily and unsustainably, quite honestly, into our reserves. Anywho, let's go to something a little bit more positive.
Step out of the arena, take a breath for a minute. This is a heavy fight, but you're not alone in it. Find a safe place where the armor can fall. Welcome to the corner that is built for us all.
This segment is exclusively for the parents, foster families, and adoptive caregivers that are sitting at your kitchen table tonight. I know exactly how heavy that room can feel when you're staring down a mountain of state forms, feeling like you can't even remove that armor at home, that the fight never ends, never relents. It is utterly exhausting. But I want to remind you of something completely undeniable. You are doing an incredible job. Let's be entirely real about who is making these high stakes decisions. The vast majority of HHS workers, MCO workers, case managers, and supervisors have never fostered or adopted a child themselves. They have degrees. They have state-mandated training modules. And they have policy manuals stuck up there. Stuck on their desks. But most have never sat up at 3 a.m. with a child experiencing deep developmental trauma, or sat with a child who's having an FASD crisis. They haven't had to fight a corporate MCO just to keep their family safe. So when they look at your paperwork and your adoption decrees and your requests, when they look at your child's clinical needs, they aren't looking at a human reality. They are looking at a budget, spreadsheet, and a checklist. They are completely desensitized to reality. There is a massive, dangerous gulf between administering a system on paper and surviving it in real life. But you are surviving it. And when you step up to care for these kids, you don't just open your home, you give them a foundation of love and safety. And you give them fierce protection in whatever setting it requires. That's no institutional policy, right? It's nothing that corporate gridlock could ever match. The fact that you are willing to look a broken system in the eyes and demand what your child rightfully deserves is not a sign of weakness. It is the ultimate proof of your strength. You are that child's absolute hero. And the daily sacrifices that you make in the daylight matter more than any sterile corporate baseline chart ever will. Never let a bureaucrat or a clinical reviewer make you doubt your choices or your worth. When you fight for your child's peace and safety, you are standing on solid ground, backed by a community of parent advocates who are walking this exact same path right alongside you. So take a deep breath. Your love is a shield. Your voice carries real power, and you have everything it takes to stay stubborn and win. Keep standing proud because you are exactly what your child needs. Remember the words of Theodore Roosevelt on those nights when the arena feels completely overwhelming. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again. Because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. HHS, MCOs, and other agencies, they aren't in the arena. They are the arena. They don't count. The critic doesn't count. The credit belongs to us, the people in the arena. Those cold and timid souls trying to crush us will never know victory or defeat. So hold your head high, warriors. Don't be afraid to let that armor fall on occasion. Do what you need to recharge. And let's fight on. As we push forward, we aren't just complaining about the system. We are establishing a clear roadmap for reform. We are actively backing policy solutions that restore true local healthcare control. And we're advocating for things like actual free FOIA requests to ensure transparency and real government accountability. And this is for all government departments, not just HHS. Furthermore, we must continually lobby Des Moines to break the shield of sovereign immunity so that state agencies can finally be held legally and financially accountable for gross administrative neglect. This is not just one dad with a microphone fighting a lonely battle. We are building a community of parents, providers, neighbors, and advocates who are completely done watching vulnerable children get treated like abstract software anomalies. Look, I am an aging public educator who still uses Facebook and listens to Hootie and the Blowfish, and I would do that on cassette if it hadn't worn out. I don't have a lot of personal leverage or a high-end corporate PR team. But real talk, we don't need a fancy corporate PR firm because we have each other. And we have a working microphone, an incredibly stubborn multitude of passionate Iowans, and a ferocious love for our children that is reclaiming the sky. Just like those trumpeter swans in the wetlands we talked about on previous episodes. When you share these episodes, when you talk to your local representatives, and when you demand the receipts for their comments and statements and promises, you are shining a light into the dark corners where coercion likes to operate. We are turning the grumble into a real unfiltered roar, and we are not going to quiet down. So to everyone watching, thank you. Thank you for being a part of this unit. And stay loud. Keep demanding the receipts and smash that subscribe button if you want to help keep this channel completely independent, unfiltered, and unbought by media overlords. Please hit our GoFundMe support link. It's sitting right here in the description, and it's on our website at www.letstalkiowa.com. Stay stubborn, and we'll talk next time.
Well, the coffee's cold and the receipts are clear, but we ain't moving an inch from here. They built the walls and they play the game, but we're calling the bluff and naming names. So slam that button and subscribe today. Don't let them run this in the shade. We'll catch you next time on Let's Talk Iowa, where the truth won't change and the policies are real. Pour one strong, keep your standards high, 'cause we're keeping an eye on the Iowa sky.